Thank you very much for joining me today for the fifth in my 30-minute business entrepreneur sessions. Today's is entitled Doing the Right Things. It's not really Christmas themed, but I'm wearing a Christmas shirt anyway because I thought, why not? I've got them in my wardrobe. I'll show you some others if you really want. Anyway, today's session is about doing the right things and to give you some tips that can improve your time management. At the end of the day, we all kind of struggle with our time as we go along. And so what I'm going to be covering today is some things that unite us all. We all have 168 hours. I'm going to introduce Eisenhower's box, a concept some of you may have heard of before, but I'll give you a little take on that. I'm going to explain why not all time is equal and some of the mistakes that people make with not understanding that. And then lastly, I'm going to share the HABU. And when you know your HABU, you'll be a happier person and you'll achieve more. So that's a quick overview of what you've got in store today. So let's move straight into 168 hours. We've all got 168 hours a week. So some people kind of say, I've got no time. And I don't have very much tolerance for that because we've all got the same amount of time. We just have to choose what we want to prioritize. So, you know, some people achieve a lot in their 168 hours and some people make a lot of excuses as to why they don't. So it's very much about how we choose to use our 168 hours that makes a difference to what we can actually achieve with our time. Okay, that almost sounds patronizing, but when you start thinking about it, we've all kind of got the same, you know, that phrase where they say, if you want a job done, give it to a busy person. And that's kind of to do with the fact that busy people typically understand how to get the best out of their time. They don't allow the things that creep into their life and steal their time. So this is a guy called Dwight D Eisenhower. He was the 34th US president. He was president from 1953 to 61, so kind of in living history. He was known for his high output and for his organizational skills. Stephen Covey, a recognized business leader and coach, talks about him and this process in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but it was Eisenhower's theory at the beginning. It's sometimes called the Eisenhower Matrix, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. It was probably one of the game changers for me, so I want to make sure that I can give you everything that I learned from it. Critically, this process is about separating the urgent from the important. So Eisenhower's box comes into its own if you are running around putting fires out all day rather than focusing on the tasks that you want or need to complete. If you're busy but feel your work has little impact, this is for you. If you aren't making progress on long-term goals, this is for you. If you suffer from procrastination, give that some thought, maybe think about it tomorrow if you want. If you struggle to say no when you're asked to do something, and if you have a hard time delegating tasks, assuming you've got people you can delegate to, then again, this is a process for you. So at a headline level, the first thing you need to do is document your activity. What do you do today? So have a look through at what you do on a typical day, on a typical week, and maybe kind of look at anything you put more than 10 minutes into. So if it's stuff that's taking more than 10 minutes of your day, write it down so as you've got a decent record of what you currently use your time for, your 168 hours or your 40-hour working week, or whatever it is we're trying to fix here. Try and get that written down. Try and capture 70% of the day that we're trying to fix. So you're not trying to get everything down, that's fine. But if you can try and find 70% of your day, the reason why I say that is you can revisit this task. So you can do it, you can work on the thing that we're going to talk about next, and then when you get good at it, you can come back and do it again and find out where you can continue to optimize how your time is used. So first thing is make a list. Your list could look something like this. So opening the post, reviewing some quotes before sales can send them out, visiting an unhappy client, sifting CVs, rearranging paper clips because they're not going to rearrange themselves, planning work for the staff outing or attended a staff disciplinary. Now, that's a list of things that anybody's going to come up with. Your list could obviously be different. Once you've got your list, what we then need to do is start splitting that into some separate categories. We're going to end up with 4 categories, but we start by questioning. We need to find out whether you should be doing it in the first instance. So are you the only person who could do that piece of work? So when you look at your list, is it something that only you can do? I remember maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I was watching this business leader and he turned around and said, outsource the £10 an hour jobs. Look at everything that you spend your time doing and anything that you could hire somebody in to do that thing, outsource it. He said, because then you can use your time for the thing that's actually more valuable. More on that later, but things that come into that is stuff like, for me, it was cleaning the windows, washing my car, cutting my grass. All of those things, I could get somebody in, and it meant that I wasn't spending time doing it because I could use that time for other things. In business, that could be whether you sit there in front of your favorite graphics program thinking you're doing a good job of your marketing. It could be that you outsource that. So look at the things you do today and whether you should perhaps be doing them. So we're going to split the tasks in 2. Are you the only person who can do the task? As in, is it important that you do it, or could you train somebody else to do it or outsource it? Is it a weakness or a strength to delegate? Now, lots of people hang on to their work because they kind of want to look busy. Some people hang on to work because they kind of, it completes them, they enjoy it. I remember having a conversation back in my IT business with a principal who proudly told me that he spent all of yesterday changing a hard drive. And I said, if I sent one of my texts, I'd expect them to be in and out within an hour for the piece of work that you've spent the day doing. I said, so how does that become useful? You're a 15 million revenue business. And he said, I like doing it. Now, I can't argue with that on the condition that he still achieves in his job. If he doesn't achieve in his job, I'd be looking at those kind of wasted days as a problem. So next, once we've split out whether you should be doing it or whether you should be able to pass it to somebody else, we then need to split what you should be doing into 2 lists. We need to decide, is it urgent and does it need doing now? As in, should it push in, or should it be scheduled in? Now you'll look at all the stuff you've done that you catalogued earlier and work out whether you could have perhaps scheduled them in rather than had them come in, interrupt what you're doing, interrupt the flow of your thinking, because that's obviously not the most productive way to be able to do that work. So once we've done that, I mean, if it helps, if you're a flowcharty kind of person, then here's a flowchart. So a task comes in, you're going to look at it. Am I the only one who could or should do this task? And if the answer is yes, does it need doing right now? There's an interesting piece the other side of that flowchart, as you can see. Does the task even need to be completed? Test whether or not a task you don't need to do, does it even need doing, or was it busy work? If it needs doing, delegate it. Train the person who's going to do it, set them up for success, make sure they know what it is they need to do, or outsource it. And the other side of it is don't do it. If it's not important and it doesn't really need doing, why is it even on your list, right? That's kind of, and I say some people like a flowchart. If you don't like a flowchart, ignore it, because then the next piece here is the quadrants. So this is Eisenhower's box, Eisenhower's matrix. Beautifully, we've got the doing first, the urgent important, right? This is the stuff only you can do. So people with poor time management, this is the busiest box. So looking at the guys on the call today, right, you've prioritized coming here, and that I would argue is a quadrant 2 thing. You've scheduled to come, it's in your diary, and here you are watching this webinar, right? If you didn't make it here, it would be because, but planned to be here, it would be because something stepped in from that important that you do it and urgent it's done now. Realistically, a lot of stuff that comes in is that urgent, not important, the things you should be delegating. So quadrant one, and we'll talk about it as quadrants. Quadrant one, people with poor time management. This is busy, typically filled with other people's, can you just do this type of jobs? The ones that you should have probably said, I'll tell you what, I can empower you to do that. Let me show you what it is you need to do, and then push it back away from you. Of course, there are genuine things that need to be in this box when your life or your career depends on it. It's in this box. You need to actually go do that stuff. Quadrant two, scheduling stuff. This is the most practical box and where you can achieve. It's if you can remove the urgent and put it in the non-urgent, if you can schedule it in, it becomes less stressful. This box is the most efficient and effective quadrant to get work done. And this is where you will make a difference within your job, within your life, within your business, right? So anything you can schedule, you will achieve more. And I'll come to a bit more of that later. Quadrant three, delegate. Okay, so this is where it gets tough. There are things that you do today that you feel only you can do. You might be right, but that perhaps needs to change. Invest in the training so you can safely delegate. Get it to the point that the person you're going to pass the piece of work to is going to be able to do it, and it's not going to burn you. So that's kind of what the delegate piece is about. That investment will repay, investing in training people. And then quadrant four, don't do flippantly YouTube cats. They don't watch themselves, but that is where they belong, in that quadrant four. It's the stuff, it's the lost afternoons. You know, you started checking your Facebook profile, and before you know it, the afternoon's gone. Don't get me wrong, go on Facebook, you know, do your doom scrolling if that's what you want to do, but that's a reward after. Put it in a box out of the way. Don't let it eat into the time that you should be doing your scheduled work. And kid yourself, somehow or other it was important. As I said, rearranging paper clips, watching cat videos. So that gives you an idea of what that is about. So the next steps on that is go back and look at everything you wrote and work out which box they should have been in, work out which things you shouldn't have been doing, which things you could delegate, which things you should schedule. Because once you get there, once you get your mindset around it, you then need to kind of, it becomes easier when new tasks come in for you to be able to do. So I think that's kind of gives you the nuts of what I'm trying to give you on the Eisenhower's box. But that takes us to the third point on today's agenda, which is that not all time is equal. So if you kind of have a look at what you've got planned next week, and think about the probability of you achieving what I want you to do, and this is maybe a sample week, right? So next week, Monday, you're working from home and you're covering childcare because the nursery's closed. Tuesday, you're working from the office all day. You're going to be in the office, meeting with people, and that's great. Wednesday, you're working from home alone all day because childcare's back open. Thursday, you're off out and about in your car visiting clients, and Friday, your downtime, you're playing golf, improving on your handicap. That's a good week, right? You can see it's a beautifully structured week. And I know your weeks may be more complicated than that, but just follow me with this little plan. I want to introduce you to the concepts of color coding your time. Color code it in your head, color code it in your schedule, get used to the idea that actually not all time is equal. So introducing you to the traffic lights here, I want to show you that actually we've got three different types of time. We've got the green time, good to go, great time to achieve because you've got the freedom to stick your head down and concentrate on the things that you need to do. You've got the amber time. There's some value, but there's a potential for interruption. So you can't necessarily be sure you're going to achieve as much as you wanted. And then you've got the red time, which, let's face it, is not going to get any work done. I've seen people before roll all of their tasks to their next available working day. So they put all of their tasks on the next day, as in when you don't achieve what you needed to do today, you just cross them over to tomorrow without any consideration of the feasibility of actually achieving all of that stuff tomorrow. Tomorrow is that a day where you're going to be able to achieve tasks or not? If it's a day where you're not going to achieve tasks, don't schedule tasks for tomorrow. So it gives you a kind of an idea of what I wanted to show you here. You have to create green time. You have to look at your diary and go, how do I produce green time? Again, there was a consultant I was working with who swore by the idea of having a 90 minutes every day of protected time. 90 minutes where nobody could disturb him. Don't even knock on my door unless the building's on fire. And then you need to have tried to put the fire out yourself before you knock on the door. He was very, very strict about his 90 minutes, but his 90 minutes was first thing in the morning. It was kind of 7 till 8:30. He would go in the office early, so he knew he would have 90 minutes of protected time, 90 minutes of green time, the time where nobody can distract you. Good. Right, so that's the idea of the traffic lights. So that takes us back to that thinking about what was in quadrant 2 that needs scheduling. So the stuff in Eisenhower's box, quadrant 2, all the things that you could do if you scheduled them in. If we go back and look at our week for next week, we can see that on Monday and Tuesday, we can see that those are kind of days where we can work, but we can't really guarantee we're not going to get interruptions. We're at home with the childcare, that's fine. The babies may be asleep, but equally, the toddlers may be pulling at your shirt, wanting some attention. So actually, that isn't quality time, but you might be able to do some work. When you look at Tuesday, you're working from the office all day. That's kind of the same problem. You never know who's going to be pulling at your shirt, demanding your time. So actually, Tuesday is equally kind of tricky if you're trying to put time in where you can be certain that nobody's going to be interrupting you. So they're both amber. Wednesday, on the other hand, you're working from home all day. So what you do is you make sure your team know you're not contactable, because you want to be able to have your head down and achieve a good day of work. So you can schedule all of the stuff that's kind of needing more focus. When I wrote my book, I needed to create that green time. If I was sitting writing and then there's something coming in, a phone call I need to deal with, or an email that somebody's expecting something today from me, that's a problem. So I needed to be able to ring fence time, green time, and say, this is when I'm writing my book. I'm going to, and writing a book, I don't find I could write for the whole day. I just needed to block out a few hours and know that that was kind of protected time. If I get disturbed from it, I may as well write off that time, because I'm not going to get back into the thought process well enough to be able to make that a decent session. So think about the tasks that you're scheduling in, and think about what your week is. And if you don't have green time, create it. Outlook is really good at allowing you to have coloured blocks, so you can actually colour up your schedule, so as you can actually see which you've actually pre-allocated as green time, to stop you putting tasks in the wrong place when you put your day together. So this helped me again a lot, and I hope it was useful to you. And then the last thing I want to talk to you is this HABU. So I had a gifted coach who looked after me for a few years, and in fact wrote the foreword on my book. And he spoke about HABU, highest and best use. Highest and best use is actually originally from an economist called Irving Fisher, who was in the early 1900s, and it related to land values. It was about getting the best out of a piece of real estate. But my coach, Hardin, talked about it in relation to people use, highest and best use of people skills. What's the best thing you could be doing with your time? So often we see people get involved in things that are, I mean, it sounds patronizing, but you say beneath them, but actually sometimes people can end up doing things that really isn't the best use of their time. Now, let's say, for example, answering the telephone. There's a place for the boss to answer the phone every now and again to get a touch of what the customers are thinking about them. It's kind of, you learn a lot when you pick up the phone. But if I found somewhere where the boss was answering every phone call, I would question whether they're doing the strategic things they're meant to be doing. So look at the things you're doing and as to whether they are your highest and best use, or whether you should be delegating them or actually just not doing them. Whether actually you get caught up in some of the things that you shouldn't be doing. But the trick to all of this is right back at the beginning of this session, document what you do at the moment, so you get a real feel as to whether there is a problem, so that you can start working on how you're going to fix it. So that was the last point on the agenda for you, HABU, highest and best use. Now I've told you that, you're going to be thinking that, and you'll look at the people around you and wonder whether some of your colleagues are actually doing the stuff they should be doing. And when you all start thinking like that, everybody's going to raise their game. So that concludes this session. I did say I would make sure I was well within the 30 minutes, because this is all about time management. You're going to get 10 minutes back that you can go and make yourself a cup of coffee before you get on with your next scheduled quadrant 2 task. So back to the book. As always, if you haven't got a copy, it's still available on Amazon. Go get one. I've done 5 sessions. When this one goes up on YouTube, I'll do some posts out on social to let everybody know that they're all recorded. I don't have anything scheduled for the new year, but if you've got any topics you'd like me to cover, by all means drop me an email or message me on all the social media platforms, and I would love to be able to deliver more for you. I'd like to thank you all for joining me on this one, and for any of you who've made it to the others, thank you very much. Have an amazing Christmas, and see you in the new year. Thank you very much.